In this video, we're going to take a look at fractional indices. So here, let's say I want to find the value of 16 to the power of a half. How would we do that here? Well, we need to be aware of the general rule when working with fractional indices. Let's say we've got here then a to the power of m over n. Okay. Well, my denominator here to the fractional power tells us what root we take to our base here, a. That means I'm taking the nth root of a. We take the nth root of a, and then the numerator here to my fractional power tells us what we raise our result to. So here we raise this result to the power of m. Okay, so if we apply that then to 16 to the power of a half, well, we take a look at the denominator to begin with. Because my denominator here is 2, what that tells us then is we take the second root or the square root of 16. I'm taking the second root or the square root of 16. Then we raise all of this here to the power of my numerator, which is 1. Now, just 2 points to make here. When we're taking the square root, we don't normally bother writing the 2 here, but I've just done it for clarity, just to show that, the 2 here relates to my denominator of my fractional power. And then obviously if I raise all this to the power of 1, it won't actually change my solution, but again, just to make it clear how the 1 relates here to the 1 from our fractional power. Well, the second root or the square root of 16 is 4. So what I get here is 4 to the power of 1, which is simply over there. Okay. So if we take a look now at a slightly more complicated example, let's say we've got 8 to the power of 2 over 3. Okay. Well, again, we start off by looking at the denominator here. My denominator is 3. That tells us that we're taking the third root or the cube root of 8. Got 8 here, and that tells us that we're taking the cube root or the third root of 8. And then we raise all this here to the numerator. So in that case then, my numerator here is 2. That means we're going to square the cube root of 8. Well, the cube root of 8 is 2. So what I've got here then is 2 squared, which is 4. Okay, so 8 to the power of 2 over 3 is 4. And now, what you might also sometimes see is fractional powers that also have a negative with them. So, for example, let's say I've got 4 to the power of minus 2 over 3 there. Okay. What this is doing now is combining what we're learning in this video and what we learned in the previous video on negative powers. So here, what I'm going to do to begin with is deal with the negative part. Remember, we write a denominator of 1. Now we take the reciprocal, so we're going to flip this here. So I'm going to get 1 over. I get 4 here. And remember, when we flip this now, the power becomes positive. That's going to be to the power of 2 over 3. Like so. And now what I do is I deal with the fractional power here in the denominator. So my numerator obviously won't change. What I've got now is the cube root of 4. So sorry, this is the wrong way round. It should be 3 over 2. Let's try that again. So that's 3 over 2. Same again here, 3 over 2. A slight error in the question there. So now what I do is I take the square root of 4. I'm taking the square root of 4. And then because my numerator here is 3, that tells us that we cube this result here. Okay. So now, if I take the square root of 4, that gives me 2, and then we cube it. So what I've got here is 1 over 2 cubed. So 2 cubed is 8, so my solution here would be 1 over 8 there. Okay, so apologies for the tiny little error here. It's not the easiest to make questions up on the spot. So that was 4 to the power of minus 3 over 2. All I've done then is put my denominator of 1, flipped it around, so I've got 1 over 4, and then my power becomes positive, so that's 3 over 2. And then I apply the rule here for fractional powers. So the only other thing to consider then, when we have a fraction here for our base, so let's say I've got 16 over 9. I've got 16 over 9, the power of a half. What do we do in this case then? Well, here, if I've got 16 over 9 to the power of a half, I just apply the rule then, that my numerator to this power divided by my denominator to this power as well. So what that will look like is 16 to the power of a half divided by 9 to the power of a half. Well, remember the power of a half here is a square root. So I've got the square root of 16 over the square root of 9. And the square root of 16 is 4. And the square root of 9 is 3. We get 4 over 3 there. Okay. Again, just making it a little bit more complicated here. Let's say I've got a over 27. And that is all to the power of 2 over 3. So again, what I can do then is I can write this as a, the power of 2 over 3. And that's divided by 27, the power of 2 over 3. So now just applying the rule here for fractional indices, that means we're now going to take the cube root of 8, and then we square that. The cube root of 8, and then we square it. Same again here with the denominator. That means we now take the cube root of 27, and then we square it. We're going to square this as well. So the cube root of 8, that would be 2. So that's going to be 2 squared, which is 4. And then here I've got the cube root of 27, which is 3. And then we square it. So 3 squared is 9. In that case, then my solution here would be 4 over 9. And if we just take a look at one more example here. Let's say we've got 125 over 64. And that is to the power of minus 2 over 3. Okay, so again, just combining everything that we know so far. So I've now got a fractional base and a negative fractional power. So again, the very first thing I'm going to do here is deal with the negative power. Because my base here is a fraction, we don't need to write a denominator of 1. We can just simply flip this. So what I've got now is 64 over 125. And that is all to the power of positive 2 over 3. Remember, my power now becomes positive, so that's 2 over 3. So from here then, we just apply this rule that we've seen for the previous 2 examples. So what I've got now is 64 to the power of 2 over 3. And then we divide that by 125 to the power of 2 over 3. So in that case then, I've got 64, and we take the cube root of 64, and then we're going to square it. Because my denominator here is 3, so that tells us that we take the cube root of 64, and we raise it to whatever the numerator is here. Do the same now with the denominator here, so I know it's getting a little bit squished here at the bottom. I'm going to take the cube root of 125, the cube root of 125, and then we square all of this here. So I'll do this in a different colour just to highlight this. We do it down here. The cube root of 64 is 4, so I've got 4 squared. My denominator now, the cube root of 125 is 5, so I've got 5 squared. 4 squared is 16. 5 squared is 25. In that case then, my solution here is 16 over 25. And there we have it. So that's everything we need there for our introduction to fractional indices. So what we're going to do now is just take a look at a quick practice question. So if we take a look now at this practice question here, we're asked to find the value of 27 to the power of 1 over 3 for part A. So 27 to the power of 1 over 3 to begin with. So the first thing to do here is check the denominator of our fractional power, because this tells what root we're taking here for our base. So for this example here, or this question, I'm taking the third root, or the cube root, of our base, which is 27. Then what I need to do here is just check my numerator, because this tells us what we raised this result to. But because this is 1, it won't actually change our answer here, because we just raised this to the power of 1, it would just give us the same as this expression here. So the cube root of 27, that would simply give us 3. So that's the solution there to A. Moving on to B now, I've got 125 to the power of minus 2 over 3. 125 to the power of minus 2 over 3. So for this example here, or this question here, the very first thing that I'm going to do is deal with this negative power. So what I'm going to do then is write a denominator of 1 underneath. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this here. I get 1 over 125. Then my power now becomes positive. So I've got to the power here of 2 over 3. So now just dealing with this fractional power here in the denominator, I've got 1 over. So for the 125 here, remember we checked the denominator to begin with. This tells us that we're taking the third root or the cube root of 125. The cube root of 125, and then we check the numerator here. Because this is 2, that tells us that we now square our result here. Okay. Well, the cube root of 125, that's 5. So what I've got here then is 1 over 5 squared, and 5 squared is 25. So my final solution to B is 1 over 25 there. Okay, so that's the solution to B. And then we just take a look now at the very last part here. So I've got 4 over 9. I've got 4 over 9, and that's the power of minus 3 over 2. So again, I've got this negative power here, so I'm going to deal with that to begin with. So because we've already got a fraction here, we can just go straight away and flip this. I'm going to get 9 over 4. I get 9 over 4 here. And then my power now becomes positive, so this is to the power of 3 over 2. So from here then, what I can do is I can write this now as 9 to the 3 over 2, and that's divided by 4 to the 3 over 2. So now dealing with the fractional powers here, so 9 to the power of 3 over 2, well, that tells us that we're taking the square root of 9, and then we cube all of that here, because our numerator here for our fractional power is 3. So I've got the square root of 9, and then we cube that. And because the power here in the denominator is the exact same, 3 over 2, we're doing the same here. So I'm taking the square root of 4, and then we're cubing that. We've got the square root of 4, and then we cube that. So the square root of 9, that would be 3, so I've got 3 cubed. And then in my denominator here, I've got the square root of 4, so that's 2, so I've got 2 cubed. Well, 3 cubed is 27, and 2 cubed is 8. So we get 27 over 8 there. Okay, and there we have it. So that's the solution to that question. And that brings the end of this video on fractional indices. In the next video, we're going to take a look at exam revision for fractional and negative indices.